G'day there guys, Connor here again from Marquee Industries, and we are back with some more stories from Reddit. As always, if you enjoy these videos, be sure to hit like and subscribe, and also the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Alrighty, let's get right into it. Nice, okay, we're on relationship advice. This one was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, My husband has been killing my houseplants with bleach. I have many houseplants, and even some that were quite expensive and were gifts from my sister. Within the last 6 months, at least a third of my plants have died. I have had houseplants my whole life due to my late mother's own love of houseplants, and I know a lot about plants. The death of the plants didn't seem related to lack of light, or inconsistent watering, or lack of nutrients, or even root rot. They just died very suddenly. I tried to not let it upset me too much, because plants die and it was not any of the expensive ones. Until now. My sister gave me a 5-leaf Monstera albo rooted plant for my birthday 2 months ago. It was beautiful. This morning I was crying pretty hard about it as I unpotted it and took a look at the roots, and I was looking hard at this plant and roots to see if its death was pest related, and that's when I noticed a smell. I sniffed my potting mix and I smelled bleach. The only other adult person in my home with unlimited and unobserved access to my plants is my husband. I wasn't able to talk with him for several hours, but when I could speak to him, I very calmly but very directly asked if he'd done something to my plants. He denied it at first. I said I smelled bleach in the potting mix of the albo my sister had gotten me, and that the only person that could have put it there was him, and he caved. He said he was putting small amounts of bleach into the fertilizer water jugs I prepare. I started crying. I asked him why. Why would you do this? You know I love these plants. Why would you destroy them? He didn't really answer, nor did he really apologize. The trust I had in him is absolutely gone. I think maybe cancelling can help us, but he's the one that did this. But I'm the one that would have to set up the cancelling. The angry part of me just wants to be done with the relationship. I know that might seem overboard, as we're married and share a child, but I feel now that I'm not safe around my husband. Wow, I wouldn't either. This is bizarre. I can't think of a single legitimate reason why he'd be putting bleach in houseplants. Let's look at some comments. Sheesh, I'd be worried about what he's putting in my coffee. That's disturbing. I can't think of a single reason to kill your plants that isn't creepy, controlling, or otherwise unhealthy. It feels like he resented the time or attention you gave the plants maybe. I don't think I'd feel safe around him either, or having your child around him. Is there somewhere safe you could go for a while you try to work out if you want to salvage the relationship? My brain. The plants were a dress rehearsal. This is just so odd, like he had no explanation, no reason, he just intentionally went out of his way to hurt you. Seems like he has some serious issues. No one casually gives bleach to a living thing unless it intends to harm it. He killed your plants on purpose. I can't think of a single reason he did this that makes him salvageable as a person or partner. There is something wrong with him. Edit, lots of people are mentioning ways that in very controlled settings, bleach can be safe or helpful for living things. I think it's obvious that isn't the case here, but interesting nonetheless. Opie makes a couple of edits. I thank everyone for giving advice. The townhome we live in is mine and my sister's, our inheritance from my mother. My husband has an office/den/gaming room that is his personal space, and there are no plants there. There are also no plants in the kitchen. I'm not a plant hoarder, like he has a room for himself. I also have a sunroom, and that's where the concentration of plants live. He has no reason to go in there. It's not access to our backyard or anything. I saw some people saying maybe he's sick of bugs, but I do not have a fungus gnat problem. I did see one person ask why did I not smell the bleach when I was watering, and I can only say my nose wasn't all up in there maybe. I also usually use a natural systemic in my fertilizer water called SNS209 that smells heavily of rosemary, but I ran out last month and haven't replaced it yet. After our conversation yesterday, I needed space. I spent the night in my daughter's room on a trundle bed. I'm going to text my husband today. He usually communicates easier and opens up more via text, rather than face to face. I'm going to ask for a reason, and I'll see what he says. Edit 2. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to make an update on a separate post. My husband won't be welcome in my home anymore, and I need to find a lawyer ASAP on Monday. I did text him, and he admitted again to putting bleach in my fertilizer water. He said it wasn't every jug I ever made, so that explains why it wasn't all my plants dying, but randomly over the past 6 months. His exact words were that I deserved to be knocked down a peg. After the text communication, I went home from work early, and I entered his office. I usually respect his space absolutely. I don't even go in there to grab dirty dishes. I don't know what I was looking for, but the hundreds of comments saying he was working up to something worse or already was doing something else really worried me. I went in there and I found a drawer full of my daughter's dolls and dollhouse furniture and little toys. I bought her that dollhouse for her 4th birthday last year, and she's loved it. She takes such good care of her toys, but something always ends up missing, and it's always my husband who notices. He lectures her about keeping track of her things, and how he won't let her play with her dollhouse if she keeps losing things. He keeps going till she starts to sob. When I hear this going on, I always step in and ask him to go take a break. I assumed he was losing his cool. I've told him this is not how to deal with this with a kid, and he says he just wants her to grow up responsible. I now see it was some weird scheme or setup or something. He would steal the stuff and stash it away and point out it was gone to berate our daughter till she cried. My sister and her husband's dad came over this afternoon, and they've changed the locks. I've texted him to tell him that he isn't coming back and that he can come on Saturday morning to grab his essential things, but that my brother-in-law and another man would be there to watch. Sorry if this is unclear or things seem missing. This Reddit post isn't super my priority. I will probs not be updating again. Thank you to everyone who worried about my safety. Wow, this got really frightening really quickly. Okay, Opie makes an update 6 months later. I've recently got some messages asking me to update and let the internet know I'm safe. My daughter and I are both safe. Without getting into too much detail, but to satiate the curious, my husband, the man I thought I knew, has changed so much that I think of it like him ripping off a mask. He's sworn at me, screamed at me, pushed me to the ground twice, and kicked me in the face. Our entire marriage, I was never afraid of physical violence from this man. The police have been involved. Divorce is still in progress. After an initial period of intense anger, my husband seemingly stopped caring at all though. He said he doesn't want any custody, and he wants to give up his parental rights of our daughter. He doesn't see her. In the last month, I've heard he actually has a new girlfriend. His parents still talk to me. I was on good terms with his mum. Also, a friend of my husband's who's been friends with him since college reached out to me to ask what's going on. We texted. He says my husband has ghosted that entire group of friends he still had after someone in the group called him out for some sort of a-hole behaviour. One positive thing that is also sad is that my daughter is bright and wonderful. There's been such a profound change to her behaviour since her dad's been gone. She's happy and silly and joyful. I guess there's been a change in both her and my behaviour. I think of it like the frog in the boiling pot. I was sitting there boiling to my death and never realised. We lived in a house of walking on eggshells. If my husband was upset, he would infect the house with hostility. I'm not sure I can describe it. I was constantly on guard and never able to relax. I was not afraid of physical violence though, so I don't want to describe it as something more serious than it was. Thank you all for making me realise I was in that boiling pot. This sub says I need to pose a question to the post. What can I do for my daughter to let her know that she's safe and loved always? I know I failed her whenever I heard her dad yelling at her about the dollhouse. I can say I tried to step in at all times when I heard it going on, but that doesn't seem enough. I feel so guilty. She is on a waiting list for therapy. Our structure is still the same. She looks like she's thriving, but I just don't know. This comment says, "Thank you for updating. I'm so glad that you're out of that marriage. I'm so glad your daughter is thriving. It's better to be raised by a single, happy, wonderful mum than having a miserable POS of a father in her life. I know this whole thing is excruciatingly difficult, but you're doing great. Keep pushing forward, one day at a time, and maybe consider therapy. And from one plant lover to another, may you rebuild your green oasis soon." Another comment says, "I remember her first post. I'm so relieved that she and her daughter got out and are safe. It was obvious that she was in danger." It's utterly terrifying to me that there are just people out there who are like this, who relish deeply harming their loved ones for reasons they can't even explain, and this behaviour can go on for years, maybe even forever if there's never a discovery like OP had. Thank goodness she got out of there. I feel terribly sorry for the woman he's dating now. What can I do for my daughter? Well, she needs to constantly reinforce for her daughter that she is smart, that she can control her environment, that she is trustworthy and careful and organised. The cognitive damage of her dad literally gaslighting her, telling her she lost her toys or was careless, and she's sitting there wondering how on earth she could have lost that toy. It was just there yesterday, and she knows she didn't move it or be careless. Add to it that he then shamed and scolded her. That's such a confidence destroyer. That is where mum needs to aim the help. Yeah, great advice, and I tend to agree. What about you guys? Let me know your thoughts down below. Anyway, that's all from that one for now, and we'll move on to another story. Okay, on Am I the A-hole? This one was written by user NoLinks3857, and it's titled, Am I the A-hole for humiliating my husband? I, 28 female, was woken up this morning because the sheets I were lying on were wet. I assumed our child, 6 female, had had an accident, but when I checked where the wetness came from, to my surprise, turned out it wasn't her, but my husband that had wet the bed. After I'd taken a shower, I woke him up and told him he'd wet the bed. At first he denied it, then I guess he realised he indeed had, as he got this mortified look on his face, jumped right out of bed, and started to try rip the bedding off. As we have pull-on sheets and our child was sleeping on the other side, he didn't get them off. It looked stupid and honestly quite funny, so I chuckled. He angrily told me it wasn't funny, so I stopped. At that point, the only thing his pulling of the sheets had accomplished was to wake up our child, who was confused and asked what was going on. He didn't say crap, just idiotically continued to try to get the sheets off, so when he didn't reply, I just told her he'd wet the bed. At that, he just froze and looked at me with this weird look on his face, almost like he was about to cry or something. Our child asked why he'd wet the bed, and as he was still completely silent, I went something along the lines of that sometimes accidents happen. He just stood there staring at me. If looks could kill, I would be dead, and I'm not exaggerating when I say he looked at me with pure hate. I've never been afraid of him, but for a second or two I thought he might hit me. Then he just dropped the things he'd managed to get off the bed on the floor, left the room, and locked himself in the bathroom for about 45 minutes. When he came out, he got dressed in a hurry and just left with saying, "You can take her to school." He didn't even look at me. His behaviour really annoyed me, but I just let him be as I didn't want to argue with him when he was in such a bad mood. When I got home from work, he was still sulking and basically ignored me. I was still annoyed with him from the morning, so his behaviour annoyed me even more. So I told him to get over it, that it wasn't the end of the world that he wet the bed, and to stop taking it out on me. At that, he accused me of having humiliated him when I told our child. I found that utterly ridiculous on so many levels, so I angrily told him that he humiliated himself when he frickin' wet the bed, not me. He didn't take that too well, and said F you, and went off to his computer, and now he refuses to talk to me. And I just feel confused. I think he's the one that behaved poorly and immature, and that I haven't done anything wrong. The last thing I said may have been harsh, but I feel like he had it coming. Yet I feel like perhaps I was mean to him. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I just want to clarify that I did not tell our child to be mean or to humiliate my husband. I told her because I didn't know what else to say. And as it was quite obvious what had happened, I thought it was just best to be honest. I didn't tell her in any humiliating way, just as a matter of fact without doing a big thing about it. I didn't think my husband would feel that bad about it. And edit 2. For some reason someone has posted a link to a post claiming it's mine. It's not, and it has nothing to do with my husband or me. My husband does not have cancer. Interesting retort there, but let's go to the comments. You're the a-hole. Probably wasn't the best option to tell your child he wet the bed. You could have said you spilled some water or just distracted her with something else, but it's really not that big of a deal. That said, you could clearly tell that it embarrassed your husband. Knowing that he was not feeling the best, you should have given him a little grace for being a little short in what he was saying, and the fact that he was not acting super bubbly. Him being embarrassed and not wanting to talk is not an attack on you. It's not about you. Anger and embarrassment are both completely valid emotions, so unless he's being rude to you, you have to be okay letting people process things and not taking it personally. But then you told him to get over it and said you humiliated yourself by wetting the bed. Total douchebag move, for real. This could have been handled so much better. Opie replies, he was being rude to me. He was rude when he looked at me like he was going to hit me. He was rude when he told me, not asked, to take our child to school, even though he was supposed to. He was rude when he left me to clean up after him. But I let that be as he was upset. He could have told me that he was angry or disappointed or felt humiliated by me when I got home, but he didn't. Instead, he chose to say nothing and ignored me, which is rude behavior and it ticked me off. But yes, the last thing I said was mean, and I do regret saying that, as it's not even what I think. You're the a-hole. Why didn't you pick your daughter up so your husband could get the pee-soaked sheets off the bed? You just sat there laughing at him, and then topped it off by telling your daughter he wet the bed to humiliate him. You sound like a very mean-spirited person. I feel bad for both your husband and daughter. This is so mean on so many levels. I would have been concerned for my partner's health, or if they'd had a terrifying dream or felt okay. I cannot imagine responding like you did. Awful. You're the a-hole. Okay, on to an update. Thanks to everyone that made me see the situation from my husband's side and made me realise I'm an a-hole, or worse. I reread my original post, and there are some things I would like to elaborate on before I come to the update. I did feel empathy and I did care about my husband. I was gentle when I told him after I'd woken him up. However, his reaction caught me off guard, and the time from when he got up from bed until he locked himself in the bathroom couldn't have been more than a minute. After that, I felt it was best to leave him alone. I know I was an a-hole for telling our child, but I didn't do it to be mean or humiliate him. It was a stupid, wrongful decision. I regret it. Further, it's not easy to show someone that you care when you're being ignored. I did text him after he left and asked if he was okay, but he left it on read. I asked him again when I got home, but he didn't answer. I asked him if we could talk about it. No answer. I asked him if he could at least tell me why he was so mad at me. No answer. I gave up and went to make dinner. After dinner, I asked him if he could stop ignoring me. No answer. I asked him if he wanted me to leave, to which he replies, "You can stay, I don't care." So I ask him again if he'll stop ignoring me if I stay, and when he says no, is when I had it. And while I don't think ignoring someone like that is okay, I know I handled it really bad, and I do feel awful for being outright mean to him. Anyway, I texted him early this morning to say that I was so sorry and asked if he was willing to talk after work so that I could apologize. He texted me back an okay around noon. We met up at home and he understandably was cold to me when we met, didn't say much. I apologized for everything, for laughing, for telling our child, for telling him to get over it, and for the part that I'm most ashamed of, that I told him he humiliated himself. He was just silent the whole time, and when I was done, he just asked why I told our child. I explained, and after that we just sat in silence in what felt like forever. Then right out of nowhere he went something like, "I scared you, right?" And I told him that briefly he did. He said he could feel that. I asked what made him react so strong, but he didn't know, just said that he panicked when he realized he'd wet the bed, that it got even worse when I told our child, and that he just got so frickin' angry with me for it. I apologized again for making him feel that way. He apologized for making me scared. I'm not going to go through all that we said after that. It was a long talk, but in conclusion, none of us are happy with how we acted, and we've both apologized for it. He wasn't that bugged about me laughing, but we both agreed that I shouldn't have told our child. However, he's no longer mad about it and doesn't think it's that big of a deal. We both think he shouldn't have ignored me like that, and that I handled it poorly and was mean. We have both accepted each other's apologies, but I still feel bad for being so mean to him. But all in all, we are on good terms now. One comment says, "Wow, I just read your original post. You really are an a-hole and seemed oblivious to it. The way you talked about it really triggered me. I've experienced people like you, even dated one, where it seems like you can't empathize with someone who might react emotionally to things differently than you. And then when someone has the audacity to give you the mental angst of considering whether you did something hurtful, you go even harder trying to put them in their place, almost like it's some kind of defense mechanism to protect your ego. And the way you were talking to and about your husband also sounded abusive." Opie replies, "Yes, I really effed up in this situation and I was oblivious to it. I wouldn't say that I normally have a hard time empathizing with people, but in this case I clearly did. I wasn't expecting him to react so strongly, and it completely caught me off guard, as I said. I've been with him for 9 years, and I usually know pretty well how he'll react, what makes him upset and what doesn't. But now I just got it all wrong, and I'm not at all happy about it." As someone who remembers fights like this from my childhood, have either of you talked to your daughter? Opie says, "I have. We talked about it in the morning as she thought he was behaving strange when he just left. Again when I put her to bed yesterday and some in between. I don't know if he has. He did sleep in her room together with her last night, but when he went to bed she was already asleep. Otherwise I don't think they interacted that much yesterday. Not that he ignored her or was rude to her at all, but I think that she could sense that he was in a bad mood and stayed away. Tonight she's at my parents' house, as I thought it would be good for us to talk without her, and for her to not have to deal with our crap. I feel so bad for her having to be caught up in this." Now for a new update, 9 months later. To begin with, as there were some concerns as to why my husband wet the bed. Since he was sober, I did try to get him to see a doctor after so many of you suggested he should, but he outright refused and claimed it was pointless as they wouldn't do anything anyway. He's wet the bed one other time that I know of, and both times he was rather exhausted and stressed out, so that may have been the reason. I don't know. This is too long, so a heads up to anyone who just wants to read about my husband divorcing me. You can stop reading now. My second post was written just after I'd apologised. Based on the initial response on my first post, I concluded that I must be an awful person, and I felt so bad for him. But to be honest, I never felt that my initial actions were that bad, and I still don't. I'm not saying I didn't deserve any of the hate I got, I surely did, but some of it was just vile, and some of the things I got hated for never happened, but in the minds of commenters. But since the outcome of my actions were so horrible, and I never intended to hurt him, I felt truly bad I had. So the apology was sincere, and at the time of the second post, I was happy we were on speaking terms, and hoped we could put this behind us. It turned out I couldn't, and shortly after, I realised I was still bothered by his behaviour. I also started to receive more comments from people who saw issues with his behaviour as well, which I'm grateful for as it reassured me that it was problematic. What I omitted on purpose from my first post, as I wanted unbiased opinions, is that my husband can be a bit unstable at times. Like he can be very immature and sensitive, has issues controlling his emotions, anger, and he's so damned hard to get sometimes. It's likely due to mental health issues, so it isn't fair to him and I'm awful for it, but sometimes I just find him so annoying and exhausting. I guess I got called out on that in my first post. At the time, he'd been in contact with a mental health team for years, but if it wasn't for them prescribing his medications, he would have cut contact with them a long time ago. Anyway, I was already a bit tired of always having to cater to his moods and him not doing enough to address his issues, so his weird over-the-top and threatening reaction, in my opinion, to wetting the bed, and me telling our child just felt too much, even though he was hurt. And as I wrote, I'd never felt threatened by him before, so it did bother me even though he didn't actually do anything. I made some attempts to try to talk with him again about what happened, especially why he got so angry that I felt threatened by it. I even asked him if it had something to do with him wetting the bed growing up, based on some theories about him being shamed for it in the comments. But he just said it didn't, and it was clear he didn't want to talk about any of it, and I didn't want to push. He's so bloody hard to talk with when it comes to stuff like his emotions or relationship issues, which can be very frustrating for me. To be honest, I even had some thoughts about whether I wanted to stay in this marriage, but they weren't that serious. Then, about a week before Christmas, he unexpectedly made a suicide attempt. Sadly, not his first. I did not see it coming, and I still feel like crap for it. Probably always will. His memory the hours before is blurry, but he's adamant he didn't intend to hurt himself when he left our home that night. But I should have known. Anyway, it was bad, and for a while we didn't know if he was going to make it, or what condition he would be in if he did. Thankfully he survived, and did so basically without any long-term effects. The time after was horrible, and when he got to come home, he was so unwell, he was basically lethargic for weeks. As to why he did it, the short answer is that he apparently had a hellish amount of anxiety he wanted to go away, which mixed bad with his sometimes complete lack of impulse control. He's been very clear that it had nothing to do with anything I've done. I didn't know how bad he was feeling because he didn't tell me or anyone else, and it's so damn hard to help him when he doesn't tell us how he's feeling. It scared the crap out of me, and it scared the crap out of him too, to the point where he finally realized he needed more help, and he's been serious about it in a way that he's never been before. So when he was offered therapy, he accepted. Now the waiting time is a joke, so he'll be starting in October. In the meantime, he's been seeing a nurse and a psychiatrist. By April, he was pretty much back to normal and went back to work. In the beginning of May, we found out I was pregnant. It was definitely not planned and was a result of us effing up when it came to birth control. Despite all of the obvious reasons why we should have terminated the pregnancy, we decided to go through with it anyway. It wasn't a decision we took lightly, but it was what we wanted. Here I can add that he was a frickin' mess during my first pregnancy, and the second, apart from our 6-year-old, we have a 4-year-old as well, was hard for him too. But for some reason that escapes me now, we thought it would be different this time. And it was, for a while. At 12 weeks we found out it wasn't one baby, but 2 babies. I know it's awful, but I would lie if I said we were happy about it initially, but by then we were already set on having a baby, so we both wanted to go along with it. And after having digested the news, we became kind of excited about it. I'm 23 weeks pregnant now, and up until yesterday, things have overall been quite good. When he got home from work, he was in a crappy mood. I thought he'd had a bad day at work, but when I asked him about it, I was served with an angry rant of how stupid we are for having the babies, and that we should have aborted them. Like WTF. And when I asked why he was saying it, and pointed out it wasn't a nice thing to say, he just replied, "Well, you asked, and it's what I feel." I didn't want to talk with him when he was like that, so I told him we'd talk about it later. When the kids were asleep, I asked him what that was all about and where it came from. He said he didn't know, in the way he says it when he doesn't want to talk about something. I tried to push a little but got nowhere, so I got a bit frustrated and told him that it wasn't fair to me to say things like that and then refused to talk about it. He was just silent for a while, then said, "F this," and went and locked himself in the bathroom. When he came out, he looked sad, so I asked him if he was okay, and he said he needed some air. I was like, okay, and added something like, "It's okay to be sad, you know." He didn't like that, so he very angrily told me he wasn't sad. I know I should have let him be, but I just got such a bad feeling, so I asked him to stay. He didn't like that either, so he screamed at me that he didn't want to frickin' stay and slammed the door so hard it woke the kids up when he left. I couldn't do much else than tend to the children, pretend everything was fine, and hope he would return safe and sound. I was so damn worried, so when the kids were back to sleep, I texted him to ask if he was okay, and then I cried. He replied almost instantly, "I'm okay, home in 5, sorry, love you," which eased my worry, but I was still sad and angry. He came back shortly after. He was clearly high, so he had calmed down. He isn't addicted. When he saw I was crying, he said he was sorry. I told him I'm not okay with him treating me like that, yada yada yada. He said he knew and apologized again. We've had that conversation before. I realized I wasn't even angry with him anymore. Perhaps I should have been. I just asked him to please not run away like that again, and he promised he wouldn't. But he probably will. Then he was tired, so we went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I haven't been feeling that great today, to be honest. I'm scared, disappointed, and I feel frickin' stupid. My husband was in a better mood when he came home today, and he's been such a sweetheart. He even talked to me. He apologized for yesterday and told me he was disappointed in himself for how he behaved, and that he's been trying so hard to behave like a normal person, his words, and that he was tired of failing all the frickin' time. I know he's trying, and he isn't failing all the time, so I told him to not be so hard on himself. I asked him about how he was feeling, and he admitted he wasn't feeling that well, but couldn't elaborate. So I asked him how bad not that well was, and said it wasn't too bad and that I didn't need to worry, and promised to tell me if it got worse. But I don't know if I can trust him on that. I'm so freaking scared he'll crash again. I'm not sure I have the energy for it, not now, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't have it either. I'm hoping so much that therapy will help him, but I'm not sure what realistically can be expected from it. What if it doesn't make a difference? What do we do then? I know it probably doesn't seem like it, as my posts have only focused on the negative, but I love my husband so much, and I don't want to live without him. But I don't want to live like this either. I don't know, perhaps I'm just overly sensitive right now, being pregnant and all. And some final comments. Oh, God bless. You will soon have 2 newborns, 4 in total, 7 and under, and a clearly very mentally unwell husband. He is a ticking time bomb. I'm sorry, but your life and present situation is quite dire. Family nearby, active relationships. Do you have a safe place that you could take you and the kids at a moment's notice? Opie says, it sure does sound bad put like that, and I honestly have a bit of a hard time taking it in that that's my life. On a positive note, we both have our parents, siblings and friends close by. I have a decent relationship with my parents, and they know my husband struggles with his mental health, but there are things I'm not comfortable talking about with them, and his parents are great and helped out so much when it was at its worst, but it's complicated. I really don't think he would ever be a threat to me, but I'm honestly not as sure as I used to be anymore. I know he would never intentionally do anything to hurt the kids, but yes, if it were to come to that, the door to my parents' home is always open for me and the kids. This is above Reddit's pay grade. You need a support system, couples counselling, possibly different medical professionals. We are definitely willing to listen and propose support from a digital perspective. I empathise with your situation, but I'm not a licensed professional for answers. Ask for help from those around you if you can. This is a big burden on your relationship, and you're facing it head on. You need to be supported, either a professional or online support. Good luck. Opie replies, thank you, you're right. I have been thinking I probably need therapy too, or at least someone professional to talk to, because I'm not comfortable talking freely to my friends and family about everything I want to talk about. Okay, so he really needs to get his bipolar disorder under control. That includes talk therapy, not just medication. I'd do couples therapy as well. Please ask for some family support as well. This is too much for you to manage. Please take care of yourself and the kids. If that means removing yourself permanently or until he's actively working on his mental problems. I say this because it's not just you there, it's kids who also may have mental health struggles in their DNA, and seeing him be unstable, angry and destructive is challenging for any kids. He needs to get better for them. Opie replies, thank you, I agree with almost everything you're writing. Now I'm not saying he isn't bipolar, but he isn't diagnosed with it. He's formally diagnosed with EIPS/BPD, according to him misdiagnosed, so it's sort of a sore subject, and ADHD. I honestly feel so bad for the kids. He's a good dad and he would never do anything to intentionally hurt them. He's actually surprisingly patient with them, but even though he tries to behave when they're around, they are indirectly affected by his behaviour. I've been trying for so long to make him realise he needs therapy as well. He has tried a few times, but never gotten back after the first session. He'll give it a try again, starting in October, and he's promised he won't quit, and he does seem serious about it, but we'll see. In theory, I'm open to couples therapy as well, but I don't think he's ready for it. We tried it once and he was just silent the whole session, apart from a few I don't knows. He didn't want to go back, and I honestly didn't see the point of it either. And Opie comments more on her husband's frustrations. I suppose, but I sure do wish for it. It would make everything so much easier, for him too, because when he goes on angry rants like that, he's just nasty and off-putting, to be honest. Like calling us 2 frickin' stupid C-words doesn't really evoke my sympathy. Everything you wrote above is true, and I'm having a hard time coming to terms with my stupidity in this situation. There are mitigating factors, like us not knowing it was twins when we decided to continue the pregnancy, but in the end it doesn't really matter, and I decided to keep the babies when I shouldn't have. It was stupid. I want to make it super clear that my husband wanted the baby when we thought it was just 1, and he still wanted them when we found out it was 2. I would not have gone along with the pregnancy if it wasn't what he wanted too, so this is in no way a situation he was forced into by me, even though it somehow feels like it now. I guess it all comes down to me thinking I should have known better, like I should have known this would likely be too hard for him, even though he didn't realise it himself at the time. Okie dokie folks, and that's the end of that story for now. Yeah, plenty to unpack there, and I'll keep an eye out for any future updates. But yeah, it's clear the husband and everyone in this story for that instance needs to go to therapy or, some sort of professional. But yeah, the husband more than anyone, considering his, history of mental health issues. He seems too, I guess, prideful to accept that though. I don't know, it's a bit tricky. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, let's move along to another story. Okay, this next one was written by user Turbulent Heat, and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for cutting my hair without telling my husband first? I, 29 male, was running some errands today and spontaneously decided to get a haircut. My hair wasn't that long, only to my chin, but it's been bothering me for a while now. It's not a drastic difference, just a little shorter and a more conveniently masculine style. I didn't even think about telling my husband, 41, before doing it. When I got home and he saw my new haircut, he immediately got ticked. I asked him if he liked it, and he said he didn't. He asked what I'd been thinking cutting off my hair without talking to him first. I honestly didn't think it'd be such a big deal, because it's just hair and it'll grow back eventually. But when I told him that, he completely freaked out and said if I didn't care about it, I should have just cut all of it off. I'm now locked in the bathroom until I shave my head. I'm honestly in a bit of shock because I didn't expect this to escalate this way. I don't want to shave my head, but I also don't want to stay in the bathroom forever. Is it really such a big deal that I didn't talk to my husband beforehand? Update, I decided that it's not worth to fight over this, so I'm just going to shave it off. I kind of made it a bigger issue than it should have been anyway. I'm sorry for wasting your time. Also, I'm not a woman. Whoa, this is a straight up abusive one-sided relationship to me. Let's go to some comments. Babe, run. I mean it. This is not normal. If you have your phone with you, call your emergency number now and get them to send the police. Then pack your stuff while they watch and leave. Never look back. There are so many red flags in this post. It's basically a Macy's parade. This doesn't get better, only worse. Please, for the love of all things cute and fluffy, get out now. Not the a-hole. Edit, dearie me, some seriously misplaced rage and hatred on this reply chain, all because one account can't accept that a bathroom door could be locked from the outside. In many countries, mine included, residential bathroom doors have a keyhole on both sides. Perhaps Opie doesn't live in your little corner of the woods. Is this really a hill worth dying on? I read your comment saying that you're a man. That really doesn't matter. Your husband is abusive and you should get out now. Call the police so you can get out of that bathroom. This is way beyond the hair, which by the way you're perfectly within your rights to cut as you want. Not the a-hole. I'm not a woman. Doesn't make this any less horrifying or abusive. Men can absolutely be victims of abuse and are deserving of the same protection that women are. Excuse me, what? He locked Opie in the bathroom and doesn't let him out until he's shaved his head? Opie's husband is an abuser and Opie needs to run. Preferably yesterday. Lock me in the bathroom with my phone and don't let me out immediately after I make it clear I don't think this is funny? Yeah, I gotta call the cops. Okay, Opie makes another post. My husband and I had a fight yesterday. It wasn't even anything serious, but it escalated a little. I got a haircut without talking to him about it first, and he got mad about it. I then made it worse by saying that it's not a big deal, and just hair that will grow back, so he made me shave my head to prove his point. He's always been a little neurotic about things like plans and giving him a heads up before I do anything. He generally doesn't like it when I do things he hasn't approved first, like when I order something at a restaurant, or when I make plans with people he doesn't know that well. But that's just how he is. I guess he's a micromanager and can be a little uptight about things, but I never took any of that as abusive. When I made a post on Reddit about our fight yesterday, a lot of comments said he's abusive. I don't think I'm being abused though. He never gets violent with me or forces me to do things I don't want to, but it got me thinking that maybe there are things I should look out for in case he ever changes. What, he never forces you to do things you don't want to? I'm assuming you didn't want to shave your head in the bathroom the other day. God, it's sad to see how abuse gets to people like this. Now for a final update. I just wanted to let you know that you were right. After what happened last month, things kept getting worse. Last night we had another fight that escalated, and after I was released from the hospital, I went straight to my sister's house. Tomorrow, her and her boyfriend are coming with me to collect some of my stuff. I'd like to think that I would have left him without your comments on my last post, but I'm honestly not completely sure if I wouldn't have just tried to find excuses for his behaviour. So thank you for that. And some final comments. This is how it generally starts. One small thing leads to another, then the demands slowly grow, as does the rage. Edit, I was speaking big picture. The locking in the bathroom for this OP was not a small thing. Yikes, I'm glad he got out, but I'm sorry it took a trip to the hospital for him to see that he was a victim of abuse. Yeah, like that comment said, that's usually the way these things go. What about you guys? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Anyway, that's it from me today. I hope you guys enjoyed those stories. Thanks for making it to the end, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good day. Cheers.